Our final topic of the day, we're gonna do some news here. So people are freaking out, man. There. So Chainsaw Man, the manga has ended there. Fujimoto has gone like, I'm moving on. I'm not doing Chainsaw Man anymore. He did the finale of it. There was all this anticipation, kind of mixed with hype, mixed with fear of what the ending was gonna be.
I
Is
would
it gonna
like to say that people have been like in this same sort of line of thinking and this sort of reaction that you're about to bring up. People have been reacting to every new chapter that way for like the last year and a half already. So
mm. Okay. And I don't read the manga. I just watch the anime there. But we've been doing a lot of Fujimoto's work there. I've been a big fan of his. We did his anime film there, Look Back, what it was called there.
yep.
And I was a big fan of that. We did his anthology series on Amazon Prime. I was a big fan of that there. That was like 1721 there with that. And we also did a review there. We didn't do it together. We did do it together, right? The
Yep.
Chainsaw Man Reze arc
Yeah, we
there.
did the first season and then we did the back when that came out and then the movie last year too.
Yeah, we did the movie Reze arc there, which I loved. It was on one of my favorite movies of 2025 there. I thought it should have get nominated for best animated feature there. Shame it didn't get nominated, but yeah. So I've been loving a lot of his work there, what he's done there, and people dubbed him. I mean, people lauded all this praise on him and going like he's a genius, he's a mastermind, you know what I mean? But then a lot of people have also gone with this, like with this final chapter when it finally dropped, everybody was like, what the fuck is this? This is terrible. This is awful. This is incredibly disappointing. This is the worst thing ever. And then there was, I guess, a beef between the Chainsaw Man fans and then the JJK fans because the JJK manga also ended. And then I guess JJK, they were clowning that ending of JJK, the Jujutsu Kaisen. So then when their ending came up for Chainsaw Man fans, they go like, well, this shit is worse than Jujutsu Kaisen there. And do you read the manga for Jujutsu Kaisen?
I have.
Okay. And did you think that ending was bad?
No.
Okay. Interesting there. Okay. So
I
you're
mean,
a fan.
like I've said, I want to say too, like if you were looking at just when the manga ended for Attack on Titan, you'd think it was like the single worst ending of like anything that ever happened. Because this has happened every time a big series, for sure with when it comes to manga, every time a big series has its ending in the last like at least since COVID for sure, in the last 6 years, all of them seem to have this reaction. And I think, I mean, I don't read that many series, but even series that I'm like, oh, I don't know quite what that is, I'll see people freaking out about the ending of the thing.
Okay. Interesting there. So I'll show some positive tweets there. And I'll show some kind of more kind of negative ones there as well with that. So I'm trying to find more of the some of the negatives one that I pulled up. But you also showed me some positive ones that people had.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just the algorithm, being different, but like what I saw was a lot more like 50-50 as far as like this full spectrum of reactions that I came across. It was much more 50-50. And I'd say if you look at like specifically like the Japanese fandom, it's more like 70-30 in terms of positive being the 70 and negative being the 30.
Okay, so here's some positive ones there with it here. So here this person says here, while this is true, so he's responding to he's quote tweeting this, and the quote tweet says here, I'm not saying Attack on Titan's ending wasn't already hated a lot when it came out, but we low-key lucked it out by it ending before the slander memes evolved into what they are today. And then this person says, "Wow."
Personally, it felt pretty brutal then.
And then this person said, while this is true, I still have never seen reception to the ending as brutal as Attack on Titans. Manga readers who came into the game post 2021 don't know what true lashings look like. It felt like every page got dunked on or became a meme, while other endings, there's like one or two plot beats that people linger on. 139 just kept getting beaten down, even though the patches, Mappa, and anime onlys did an insane rehabilitation there. So you got kind of like that one there.
And that's a big thing too, is when the anime ended, it was like 95% positive reaction.
Yeah.
Like it could not have been more of a different feeling when comparing the manga to the anime versions.
So then this was another one here. So it says this person says, I can't speak for every Chainsaw Man fan out there, but me personally, I don't think Fujimoto is some omnipotent god whose genius rivals Shakespeare. He's just a guy who made an incredible series. I don't treat manga like a sporting event. I'm going to treat it like an art form. There. So he's
That is, I think, probably my favorite of those, because I think that's a very healthy way to look at it, and also is sort of the way I look at it. It's never been like, oh my god, the greatest piece of fiction of all time. And I think you mentioned how much people sort of glaze, when they're into something and it's popular. It's like, what's that the little speech that Willem Dafoe gives to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man about, like, the people who want to see, what they like more than a hero, seeing one fall. And it's sort
mm,
of that, like, idolization of it. And then, if there's any perceived sort of slight or misstep, then it's like, this 10 times, 20 times harsh reaction that comes back.
yeah. So this one's kind of long. I won't read all this, but so this is a YouTube creator. He does a lot of anime talks there, reviews there. Mother's Basement, I think, there's the YouTuber there. I do follow his work. I like a lot of stuff he does there. So he says now that people have had time to read it and have time, and I've had a bit of time to chew on it. My opinion on Chainsaw Man's ending is that it's really good. As a worthy spiritual successor to Devil Man, as the TV ending of, is that Evangelion? Is that what he's trying? EVA? Is
Yeah.
that okay? And sure to be just as divisive in its profundity
Which
there.
I will say, people hated the ending of that in the 90s when that happened. And then today people talk about it as like a masterpiece. But, you know,
He says it does come out of left field, but that's how Fujimoto's written the story from the beginning. All the best arcs throw Denji into without warning as natural result of the chaotic forces in play. So pulling him out of the same way just makes sense, and it's lets the series say exactly what it wants to say without getting bogged down in extraneous details or overlong goodbyes. So that was that there as well. There.
I
Um,
would also agree with all of that.
so this is some of the negative ones here. So this is some of the slander. This person says, "Man, the ending of Chainsaw Man makes me really reflect. I should have killed myself a decade ago. All this was a waste of energy." That person said that there. This person said here with Charlie Kirk here. He says, "So yeah, who got the better ending? Charlie Kirk here, who passed away from a gunshot, or Chainsaw Man?" There. That person said that there. This tweet right here, it has a meme from Breaking Bad right here. They said, Chainsaw Man, 232, me pretending to be a Make-A-Wish kid so I could meet Fujimoto there. And it's him. If people don't know, this is a scene where the character blew himself up and killed Gus Fring's character there. So you had that. That was kind of one of them there. Let's see here. This meme here says here, society, if that girl never flipped over Fujimoto's bicycle. There you had that as well there with that one. And this was a another one here. So this was kind of also kind of funny here. This one says, "Hello, I am Chaperone's bodyguard who yelled at that 11-year-old girl. My name is Fujimoto. I'm the author of the manga called Chainsaw Man." There, so that's a spin on what the news was about Chaperone being mean to some kid and everybody hating her. So he's trying to do like a
That one is at least like funny in like a, topical sort of way.
yeah. So he kind of does that there. I did see one that was kind of weird where it was like somebody was like, "I'm gonna kidnap him and burn and kill him and leave blood stains or something in my car," like weird kind of.
That's what a lot of them kind of sound like.
So you kind of got that there, but we read all those positives, some negatives. What is kind of your opinion? What was kind of your thoughts on the ending there?
No, I mean, I thought it worked quite well. There's a lot of context and sort of details that I don't want to get like too deep into it, and you know, I'll be dissertating about the narrative for forever. But yeah, I think that one comment about how it's a little out of left field, but he's sort of always written the series with things being out of left field, and I think that's true. I think as a story, it's always sort of pushed itself out of the bounds of sort of the typical, say, shonen genre conventions that you might expect, and takes a lot of very bold sort of directions and weird, strange turns. And yes, I think it's in line with that. And I also think that what happens is actually set up quite well. Like, especially like I've been going back and reading some of the earlier parts, like even some of the stuff that's in the first season. And I'm like, no, I think this is well built in, and I think it does pay off the themes of the story. Um, and like it's not like it's above criticism. Nothing is, right. You can have your problems with it, and you can totally dislike it, but I do think it is bizarre. And this, again, this has happened with all these series. It is sort of bizarre how like the disappointment, if you don't like it, it like turns into this sort of violent expression of that disappointment. Like that's crazy to me. And it seems like that is so consistent with like every ending of a thing now.
Mm. So what happens at the end there? We're gonna spoil. I didn't give you a spoiler there. So can you summarize it pretty well there? What happens at the end?
Yeah. So basically, sort of the idea here is, the world pretty much ends. Like we're sort of doing like a full Devil Man, full Evangelion, like worst case scenario. Things have played out as horribly as they possibly can, and it is, in large part due to our main character's decision making. He is kind of consistently, and it's not entirely his fault. He keeps being put in these really awful decision moments, and being forced to choose between a lot of times two bad choices. But he does keep finding a way to make things worse and sort of dig his heels in. And like things are in like such a disarray at the end that basically, the concept erasing thing erases itself and sort of rewrites the world. And this is a concept that's brought in. This will be introduced in season 2 of the show, which is still part of like part 1. This is like volume like 7 or 8, and this is like 24 that we're ending on. So it's like well in the first half, but sort of this idea that like reality, like an idea can be pulled out of the world, right? Because when you start the show, there's that whole thing of like, oh, it's like an alternate reality, 1990s, and there's no AIDS, the Holocaust never happened. Well, those things never happened because the demons that represented those things had been eaten out of existence already. So this is all built into the beginning of the series, and Pochita, who sort of sees that Genji is so dug in. It's sort of, I think I said this to you in a chat the other day, but like it's sort of the idea of like your armor becoming a prison, right?
Mm.
And like the thing that was kind of protecting him and sort of getting him somewhere in life, and trying to be what was preventing his suffering. Slowly over the course of the series, it became sort of the cause of his suffering. He was codependent with it. And so at the end, yeah, it sees that, and it sees that that codependency has basically ended the world. And so he's like, you know what? You, like, I am hurting you. I am sort of actively holding you back, and like your personal development as a person, and growth. And so he eats himself out of existence. Now that does not mean that that can't ever come to exist again, because like one of the things that didn't exist at the beginning of the series is nuclear weapons, right? And a big part of the sort of second half is this big fight with the Horsemen of War, and there comes a moment where nukes get fired, and the War Devil, who can't, even up until that point, even the War Demon didn't remember what nuclear weapons were, but then all of a sudden is like, oh, hey, I remember those things. The United States reinvented that concept from scratch. Awesome. Like, and so things can still sort of come back, even if they're erased, which you get a little hint of that at the very end too. But yeah, so you get sort of this sense of, well, what does the world look like without that in it now? And you get, yeah, it's almost kind of an epilogue of, hey, his life's not going to be perfect, but he no longer has this codependent element in it. And so he's able to sort of make slightly better choices out of the circumstances that he does have. And he, the kind of I'd say the big crux moment is he saves somebody sort of just as himself. Like he just helps somebody out completely in a human way with no sort of glory seeking involved. And it's like throughout the whole series, he's been sort of chasing you know, these things, and a lot of it very like sexually based. But then he gets it and he's never satisfied, or he feels empty inside afterwards. And then here he helps somebody just as himself, no glory seeking, no power involved, and you can tell that he actually feels really good afterwards.
Mm.
And like to me, that's like, oh, that's like a mature moment of character growth that does not depend on, ooh, I saved the day with my superpowers. In fact, it is like the expressly opposite of that. And I think that's why it works.
Okay. So some criticisms I've seen, just like I said, just looking at the algorithm there, people criticize it. People go like, "Well, it's a bullshit. All it was just a dream type ending
Well,
there."
that's a really fundamental misunderstanding because it doesn't change like everything so that nothing ever happened. It sort of rewrites the present and then messes with people's memories, right? And so there's several moments in this little epilogue of characters interacting with each other, and sort of when they see each other they sort of have this behavior that they'd only have because of how they know each other, that if it was genuinely like erased or it was all a dream, they couldn't interact with each other in that way, right? Like so like there are these, it does go out of its way to give you the sense of like, oh, the dynamics these characters have in relationships with each other affect how, even though maybe they don't fully remember, it's affecting how they're treating with each other and interacting with each other now. So I don't see how you could really possibly say, oh, well, nothing mattered and none of it ever happened, when it goes out of its way to have all these interactions at the end that are based upon how their relationships grew over time.
Okay. So it doesn't fully erase everything. So there's still remnants of what
Yeah.
happened before with the character. Okay, and everything like
And,
that.
and
Gotcha.
and it's the interpersonal part that is what's left over. And I feel like that's the thing that matters the most. So
Mm. Okay. Interesting there. Okay, with that. So uh
because there's the character that was possessed by the war devil, right? Who her life is, got horribly messed up. He's someone that she's someone he comes across, and she's someone he like saves just as a person at the end. And he's using a chainsaw and he like stops something, and she's like, oh, thanks, chainsaw man. And he goes, there's like a panel where his heart beats for a second and it looks like it's Pochita again, like it was before. And it sort of implies, oh, well, she sort of, because like I said, there's that part earlier in the story where nuclear weapons get reinvented even though they had been erased before. It sort of is like her calling him that is almost reinventing the idea of him being a hero, but in a way that again doesn't have that codependency. And it makes it look like, oh, Pochita is sort of still his heart, even if he doesn't realize it. So it's like,
mm,
again, it's these things are all still there. It's just that they've been kind of brought into a different context, if that makes sense.
okay. Gotcha there. And so do you think when they adapt this, that the reaction is going to be different, much like with Attack on Titan?
I think it'll be a lot more positive. And I think part of it's because, with the manga, you're reading 20 pages, and even with Chainsaw Man, some of the chapters have been like 12 pages or 10 pages. Some of these chapters are really short. And I think reading those like 8 pages, 10 pages once a week for 2 years, I think it messes with the pacing. And I've seen both from other people that have said this and for myself, if you either wait for a bunch of chapters to build up, or maybe you've already read them but you go back and you reread them like in bulk, like all close together, it is a massive improvement on pacing, and you get a much better sense of what the story beats actually are doing for each other and how things are leading to one another. Because like I was saying, the negativity did not start with this final chapter. the internet has been saying that the whole thing fell off and has been terrible for the like 2 years now. Like that has been what people reading the manga, or at least some of people have been saying. So it did not all of a sudden start with the ending. It's been going on for a while. And one of the reasons is I think that sense of pacing is really thrown off when you're getting these bite-sized chunks, right? So I think, and that's one of the reasons why Attack on Titan's reaction to its ending was so weird, so negative, right? But when the anime ended, you had, like an hour long like special finale that adapted like a ton of chapters all at the same time so that you could watch it all together, that and it had like this really good sense of pacing, right? That you're not getting with these bite-sized pieces. So I think the reaction is going to be completely different with the anime. And
Okay.
they can even do, like the one thing that I would say is like I do maybe wish it was a little longer, that like epilogue, sort of seeing that sort of that new kind of version of reality at the end. I wish it was maybe a little longer and maybe just breathed a little bit more. And that's something I think they can improve on when they do the anime version. They can let like shots linger and sort of let like the emotions breathe and stuff. Because, that's another thing with reading manga. If people are just obsessive, sort of treating it like sports, which I really like that one comment you read earlier made that note. It's like people do treat it like sports, and they get it and it comes out and they're like, okay, let me read it all in 5 minutes. And it's like, oh, okay, oh shit. They're not like, sometimes, and again, I'm not saying that every criticism anybody has is wrong, right? Like you can you can not like it, like that's fine. But there are people that are like, okay, let me consume it within 5 minutes, and then now I'm saying I hate it. When it's like, if you take your time and you kind of look at each panel and sort of try and absorb what it's trying to convey to you and maybe get some of the meaning out. Because, like I said, I just told you a bunch of stuff about how it's not actually literally it was all a dream or none of it mattered or none of it happened. I just gave you a bunch of very specific reasons of why it all totally still happened and it does inform what's going on at the end there, even though things have been rewired in a certain way. And I think that's a product of people just kind of hyper consuming it because they're hyped up about it, and then not really taking any time to sort of try and understand what's happening.
Okay. Have you seen any criticisms of it that you go like, even though you disagree, you go like, okay, that's reasonable. It's a reasonable criticism.
Yeah, like I've seen some people say like, oh, I think this happened so fast. I wish maybe there had been a little more build up to it, or it just took its time to sort of explain how this worked a little bit better. And it's like, I think that's totally reasonable. If you think it's just like this felt like it was too fast, or I wish, we it was the just got into the details a little bit more. Like I think that's, yeah, super reasonable criticism to have.
Mm. Okay. Interesting there. Yeah. Okay. And then kind of with it there, like you said, maybe the anime, maybe the people's change will be change it up there. I guess that's what I'm waiting for them to adapt it, to give my kind of opinion on it there, to actually see it and also see the things that preceded, to
Right.
understand the context of the ending there, to see that there with that as well there. So I'm probably maybe gonna wait for that to kind of happen. Um and it's just funny there. I mean, it's funny because I saw one comment that was like, everyone's complaining about the Chainsaw Man ending, and then they said Fujimoto, he's just watching hoppers. He's just going to the theater. He's having a good old
He's
time.
living his life.
He's living his life there. Yeah, watching that. I mean, do you think that? I mean, he really is cares about any of the backlash, or no, or you think maybe?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, how what art like which artists maybe take it more personally, or like really read a lot of social media reactions to their work. It's hard to say. I don't know how, he seems like someone that's not online, like on like social media, like from what I can tell all that much. So I don't know if he's really seeing the reactions in the same way that like we are. But like I could tell you for sure, like Hajime Isayama, the Attack on Titan guy, when he came to New York Comic Con, the next one after the manga ended, and people were like cheering for him, like in the auditorium, like he cried, like you saw he started crying on stage because he's like, I thought people like hated what I did and didn't like me anymore. And then it was like a tear tears of happiness, clearly, because he was like, oh, okay, this is not everybody was angry at me for how I ended things. So
Mm,
I don't know if Fujimoto is online that much, but I mean, I'm sure he's hearing some things. I mean, I'm sure there it's impossible to escape it entirely, but I'm not sure how much he's actually absorbing.
okay. Is this the video right here of him crying? Is this it?
Yeah, it is.
Let me see.
As I was getting influenced by the works of the anime Attack on Titan, it started to really kind of shifting the portrayal of the main character Eren to be more of a good guy. So in order to convince the readers of his intention and decisions, I really have to kind of steer the direction of the stories to make it very convincing. Uh, I still have I still have doubts within myself. Did I land it? I'm not even so sure, and I still struggle on this point, and I'm very sorry about that.
Okay.
I try not
Okay.
to cry.
All right. So there you go. There you got that. So it got a
And
little
I'm
emotional.
sure it's hard to see that, right? Because like, yeah, I'm sure when that kind of social media reaction happens, it feels like everyone in the world's coming after you. I mean,
Mm.
shit, 99% of people on the planet have no idea who the fuck I am, so I have no idea what that feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Fujimoto. I don't know how. I mean, it seems like from Chainsaw Man, I mean, there's a lot of pop culture references in it, but doesn't seem
Yeah.
like. I mean, I guess that doesn't correlate to being so online just because you have that. I mean, has he? I'm trying to think. Has he referenced any like big memes in Chainsaw Man or anything like that? Like he does pop culture stuff as far as like movies and shows, but
Yeah,
doesn't
he's
really-
super into movies. The Attack on Titan guy, he would reference memes sometimes, but
yeah,
I don't know if I really think of any Chainsaw Man like referencing a meme within the series. Not that I
yeah.
could think of.
Yeah, so I don't know how online he is there of it. Yeah. Okay. And then what's next? Has he talked about what's next after this? Like what he's taking a
No,
break?
yeah, I assume he'll probably take a break. I've heard him talk about wanting to just write like a straight out romance thing,
Okay.
which so maybe that's what he does. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything specific, but even though that's not a genre that I'm like really interested in. If it's his, I would give it a try because like I would think it would at least be like weird in some way that would be unique or interesting. Um, I'm down for whatever he does next. He has not let me down at least yet with his stuff. So
Look back. That kind of had some little bit of romance in it, right? Look back.
um, I feel like that was more about best friends than it was like a romantic angle, but.
Yeah, I guess that's yeah, more best friend.
Well,
Just
and,
yeah.
and I think with look back, I think the really interesting way to read that story is basically the left half and right half of his own brain and sort of him falling out of love with creating art and then the part of his brain that still loves doing it. I think that actually personally that's the way I think that's most interesting to read to me. It's like this and the whole the grieving and the death of that story is really about him sort of being crushed by the corporate overworking of manga
Mm,
production, right? And sort of being like having to pump out these chapters every single week, right? Making Chainsaw Man, and then sort of his love of art being killed, and then having to sort of find it again. I think that's really what that story is about. Plus, like the book that she gets famous for making is very clearly Chainsaw Man. Like they call it Shark Kick, and like you see the volume cover, and it's literally the first volume cover of Chainsaw Man, except he's a
mm,
shark in a suit instead of a chainsaw guy in a suit. So it's like very clearly kind of commenting on his feelings about the art industry.
yeah. That's funny. It looks like she's writing on a goddamn Steam Deck, like a giant Steam Deck. Right there. But yeah, I think he could do it. I think, look back kind of has that, kind of storytelling. I think he can apply to romance and apply to
Well,
that.
I'd say that anthology that had a lot of romance stuff
Yeah.
in it,
Oh yeah, 1721. That too. That had some of that he
like
or
a ton.
26, I think it was maybe. That he had a lot of that in it. You had some stories like that there of it, like a dude who, was attracted to his teacher and everything like that. And you had that element in there. So you had that, maybe it'll be about the girl that, pushed him off his bike or something, and then he got a hard on or some shit like that. And then he'll
It's funny
finally
because the war devil in Chainsaw Man, like the horseman, the girl that is like possessed by that or whatever,
Mm.
looks very much like that same girl.
Which girl?
It's the one girl in Look Back that's kind of
Oh,
more the mean one. That
gotcha.
also is what the character in Chainsaw Man looks like. And then in that anthology, like in like 2 or 3 episodes, that sort of design kind of popped up in there too. So he's clearly kind of hung up on that.
Okay. Yeah. Does he have
I would
a
not be if he does another series and it is romance heavy. I guarantee you he's going to actually draw a scene of a boy getting pushed off his bike.
is he married? Does he have a girlfriend or anything? Or
I have no idea. I like the thing. It's interesting because like I've genuinely tried to like read more about him, but like that's why I say I don't think he's online all that much because it seems like a lot of details of his life are not really available to learn about. Like it seems like it's kind of hard to learn a lot about the guy.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at his Wikipedia there. People don't even know if his exact age there. That people say some people say he's 32, maybe 33. Maybe he's born 1992. Maybe he's born 1993. You got that. But in the meantime, I think you said the next adaptation film is Goodbye Erie, right? That's the
Well, nothing has been announced, at least for sure, but I think it'll happen. It's another one shot. It would probably be the same length as Look Back. It's just a single book, but it's really good. I think it would do very well if they did the same sort of thing. I think for sure the next thing will be the second season of Chainsaw Man because that's officially announced as coming and in
yeah.
production.
Okay. When is that? 2027, 2028, you think?
I bet it's 2027.
2027. Okay. Very good there. Yeah, so that was our thoughts on the ending. Chainsaw Man.